The news of Robert Benton's passing at the age of 92 has sent ripples through the film industry, where he was long regarded as a master of storytelling and a consummate craftsman behind the camera. A true luminary in American cinema, Benton leaves behind a remarkable legacy that spans decades, filled with emotionally resonant films, iconic collaborations, and a deep influence on generations of writers and directors. His death marks the end of an era for a certain kind of quiet, character-driven storytelling that prioritized human complexity over spectacle. For admirers of thoughtful cinema, Benton's passing is not just the loss of a filmmaker, it is the quiet closing of a golden chapter in Hollywood's narrative tradition. Born in Waxahachie, Texas in 1932, Robert Benton's journey from a small-town boy to an Academy Award-winning filmmaker is as inspiring as any story he committed to paper or film. His early years were steeped in the modest rhythms of Southern life, an experience that would later inform the intimacy and emotional depth of his writing. Before cinema became his calling, Benton pursued his education at the University of Texas, and later at Columbia University in New York. He began his professional career in publishing, becoming the art director at Esquire magazine, where he first began to hone his artistic sensibilities and develop a voice that was both visual and narrative. Benton's initial foray into the world of screenwriting came through a creative partnership with David Newman, with whom he co-wrote the groundbreaking 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde. The film was revolutionary, not just for its stylized violence and sympathetic portrayal of outlaws, but for the way it signaled a shift in American filmmaking. It was part of the so-called New Hollywood era, which saw younger filmmakers breaking away from the strictures of the studio system to craft edgier, more personal stories. Bonnie and Clyde received critical acclaim and was nominated for several Academy Awards, firmly placing Benton on the map as a screenwriter to watch. The screenplay, dripping with tension, rebellion, and irony, revealed Benton's gift for balancing mainstream appeal with artistic depth. Following the success of Bonnie and Clyde, Benton continued to write and eventually made his directorial debut with Bad Company in 1972, a western of sorts but one that eschewed many of the genre's traditional heroics for a grittier and more introspective take. Bad Company foreshadowed the kind of narratives Benton would gravitate toward in the coming years, tales of flawed individuals navigating morally ambiguous worlds. He had a keen eye for character and an unflinching ability to portray vulnerability, traits that would define his most acclaimed works. The late 1970s and early 1980s were arguably the most fruitful period of Benton's career. In 1979, he wrote and directed Kramer vs. Kramer, a film that would go on to win 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director for Benton, and Best Adapted Screenplay, again for Benton. The film starred Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep and told the deeply human story of a custody battle between a father and a mother. What made Kramer vs. Kramer so impactful was Benton's refusal to present villains or heroes. Instead, he drew both characters with compassion and complexity. The film was lauded not just for its performances but for its sensitive and nuanced portrayal of modern parenthood, divorce, and gender roles during a time of significant societal change. Benton's direction allowed for emotional subtlety, and his script captured the quiet tragedies and triumphs of ordinary life. Kramer vs. Kramer wasn't just a box office hit, it was a cultural moment. It forced audiences to grapple with shifting notions of masculinity and femininity, particularly as the feminist movement continued to evolve. Through the character of Ted Kramer, a man who must learn how to care for his son after his wife leaves, Benton explored themes of growth, loss, and the fragility of human relationships. In many ways, the film epitomized his approach to storytelling, compassionate, honest, and deeply empathetic. Benton followed Kramer vs. Kramer with another critically acclaimed project, Places in the Heart, 1984, for which he again received the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. The film, which also earned him a nomination for Best Director, starred Sally Field in a career-defining role that won her the Oscar for Best Actress. Set during the Great Depression in his native Texas, the film was both a homage to his roots and a meditation on racial tension, economic hardship, and resilience. The film's final scene, a wordless communion that brings together the living and the dead in a small church, is one of the most haunting and poetic moments in American cinema. It was emblematic of Benton's ability to fuse emotion and spirituality, without ever tipping into sentimentality. As his career progressed, Benton continued to craft thoughtful dramas that put character and emotion at the forefront. In 1994, he directed Nobody's Fool, starring Paul Newman in one of his most beloved late-career performances. The film, based on the novel by Richard Russo, told the story of a small-town man struggling with the choices of his past and the looming presence of old age. The film was another quiet triumph, earning Benton yet another Oscar nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay and reminding audiences of his enduring talent for creating poignant, lived-in stories. Throughout his career, Benton demonstrated a remarkable ability to elicit award-winning performances from his actors. From Dustin Hoffman and Meryl Streep to Sally Field and Paul Newman, his collaborators often praised him for his gentle guidance and deep understanding of human behavior. He was not the kind of director who shouted or demanded obedience. Rather, he created spaces where actors could explore and be vulnerable. His sets were known for being calm, focused environments that prioritized the integrity of the story above all else. Beyond his work as a writer and director, Benton was also a mentor to many aspiring filmmakers and screenwriters. He taught courses, gave lectures, and often spoke about the importance of personal truth in storytelling. Unlike some of his peers, Benton never seemed overly concerned with chasing trends or box office numbers. His focus remained fixed on the heart of a story, the authenticity of the characters, and the subtle moments that could illuminate a lifetime of emotion. While he did not produce films at the same frequency in the later years of his life, his influence remained palpable. His storytelling philosophy, one that valued nuance, humanity, and restraint, served as a counterpoint to the increasingly spectacle-driven nature of modern Hollywood. In a world of ever-expanding cinematic universes and special effects, Benton's work reminded us of the power of simple, honest storytelling. His death at the age of 92 is a profound loss not just to the film industry, but to anyone who has ever found solace, meaning, or inspiration in the quiet beauty of a well-told story. He represented a kind of filmmaker that is increasingly rare, one who made films not for glory but for the sheer love of human connection. His legacy will live on not only through his films but through the countless artists he inspired to look deeper, feel more honestly, and write with courage. In reflecting on his body of work, it's clear that Benton's films are not bound by the era in which they were made. They endure because they speak to something universal, our shared need for connection, understanding, and redemption. He had an almost uncanny ability to pinpoint the emotional center of a story and strip away all artifice until only the truth remained. Whether it was a child struggling to understand his parents' divorce, a woman trying to save her farm, or an aging man facing the reckoning of time, Benton captured these experiences with grace, humility, and insight. The accolades he received: 3 Academy Awards, numerous nominations, and the adoration of critics only tell part of the story. More important was the quiet revolution he helped lead in Hollywood. Alongside his peers in the New Hollywood movement, Benton helped shift the narrative focus of American cinema from the grandiose to the intimate, from the archetypal to the personal. His legacy stands alongside that of screenwriters and directors, like Robert Towne, Hal Ashby, and Sidney Lumet, filmmakers who believed in the emotional and moral power of storytelling. As the news of his passing spreads, tributes have poured in from across the film world. Actors, directors, screenwriters, and critics alike have shared stories of his kindness, humility, and genius. Many have cited him as a mentor and a friend. Others have simply expressed gratitude for the way his work touched their lives. For audiences around the world, Robert Benton's films remain a testament to what cinema can be when it prioritizes truth over trend, heart over hype. There is a quiet dignity in Benton's body of work, a kind of moral and emotional clarity that feels increasingly rare in contemporary filmmaking. He never needed flashy visuals or high-concept plots to tell a compelling story. All he needed was a pen, a camera, and a deep understanding of the human soul. In his hands, the everyday became profound, and the personal became universal. Robert Benton may be gone, but his stories will continue to speak to new generations of viewers. His scripts will be studied, his films rewatched, and his influence felt in the quiet pauses and meaningful silences of cinema yet to come. In mourning his death, we celebrate his life, a life spent capturing the fragile, fleeting beauty of what it means to be human. Benton's passing marks not just the end of a life, but the closing of a chapter in American cinema that prized emotional honesty, narrative subtlety, and an unwavering belief in the power of character. He was never one to shout. Instead, he whispered truths through his screenplays, letting audiences discover the emotional weight of his stories in their own time. He didn't rely on bombast or spectacle to make his point. Instead, he trusted the viewer to sit with discomfort, to listen carefully, and to reflect, an increasingly rare quality in the world of filmmaking. Born in Waxahachie, Texas, Benton never lost sight of the deeply human and often painful complexities that define small-town life. This sensibility shaped his most iconic works, where quiet suffering, unresolved tension, and fragile redemption painted a portrait of people doing their best in the face of life's harshest realities. Whether it was a mother trying to save her farm during the Great Depression in Places in the Heart, or a failing marriage torn between love and betrayal in Kramer versus Kramer, Benton offered no easy answers. He simply held up a mirror to humanity and asked us to look and to feel. Kramer versus Kramer in particular became a cultural touchstone, not just because of its Academy Award success, but because it tackled themes that had long gone unspoken. In mainstream cinema, divorce, fatherhood, gender roles, and emotional vulnerability were portrayed with a degree of nuance and emotional gravity that stunned audiences. It was not just a courtroom drama about custody, it was a meditation on parenting, identity, and sacrifice. Dustin Hoffman's portrayal of Ted Kramer may have earned the headlines, but it was Benton's script that gave the character breath and soul. He gave voice to men who struggled to reconcile ambition with love, and women who challenged societal expectations by asserting their right to choose. These were revolutionary ideas at the time, and they were delivered with a quiet power that left a lasting impact. Even in less discussed works like Nadine or Twilight, Benton displayed an unmatched ability to draw out the richness of character. His writing was never showy for the sake of showing off. It was precise, often deceptively simple, and deeply rooted in emotional truth. He knew the weight of a glance, the meaning in a pause, and how a single line of dialogue could encapsulate a lifetime of regret or hope. He wrote like someone who had lived, who had loved, who had made mistakes, and tried to make peace with them. There was an intimacy in his storytelling that made his work feel like a quiet conversation between friends, a confidant letting you in on something sacred. Beyond the scripts and the Oscars, Benton's legacy is best measured by the artists he influenced and the emotional vocabulary he expanded within American cinema. He was a writer's writer, a director who respected his actors, and a creative soul who never lost his curiosity about the human condition. Collaborators speak of him with reverence, not just for his talent, but for his kindness, his humility, and his deep respect for the process of storytelling. In a business often driven by ego, Benton was an anomaly, soft-spoken, thoughtful, and intensely committed to the craft rather than the spotlight. His ability to transition between roles, novelist, screenwriter, director, was another testament to his deep understanding of narrative structure and emotional rhythm. He co-wrote Bonnie and Clyde alongside David Newman, helping to ignite the new Hollywood era with its stylized violence and countercultural tone. That screenplay wasn't just a script, it was a statement, a declaration that American cinema was ready to evolve, to take risks, to challenge authority. It was this spirit of defiance and artistic bravery that would follow Benton throughout his career, even as his later works grew more introspective and less overtly political. To watch. A Robert Benton film is to engage with cinema at its most personal and most profound. His stories didn't just aim to entertain, they sought to reveal. They unwrapped the emotional armor we wear and asked us to consider what lies beneath. His characters weren't heroes or villains. They were people, raw and unfinished, just like the rest of us, and perhaps that is why his work resonates so deeply. We saw ourselves in his stories. We felt seen. Now that he is gone, we face the quiet ache of that absence. But we also hold on to something enduring. His films remain. They will be shown in classrooms, dissected in film circles, cherished by generations who never knew his name, but will know his voice, and not just in film, His work will echo in novels, in scripts yet to be written, in young writers just beginning to understand how powerful simplicity can be. His influence will ripple outward, subtle but constant, like the best kind of storytelling. Robert Benton leaves behind more than a filmography. He leaves behind a testament to empathy, to patience, to the belief that stories matter, not just as entertainment, but as essential human connection. In a time where speed often trumps depth and noise overwhelms meaning, Benton reminded us of the enduring strength of stillness, of silence, and of words that come not from the head, but from the heart. As we remember Robert Benton, we remember not just the man, but the stories he gave us, stories that healed, that challenged, that resonated, stories that will continue to do so long after the lights in the theater dim. His voice may now be silent, but his stories, those tender, aching, unforgettable stories, will speak forever. There is something enduring about the kind of storytelling Benton practiced, something that transcends the moment in which it was created. His narratives were not bound by the trends of the time or by fleeting popular opinion. Instead, they were rooted in the universal emotional experiences that connect us all. Love and loss, hope and heartbreak, misunderstanding and reconciliation. These were the spaces in which Benton lived as a writer and filmmaker, and it is precisely why his work continues to feel timeless. Even as decades pass and cinematic styles shift, Benton's stories retain their potency, their quiet urgency. They still move us because they speak to the most vulnerable parts of who we are. He did not sensationalize life's hardships, nor did he sugarcoat them. He simply portrayed them with honesty, with grace, and with a rare tenderness that allowed the viewer to feel seen and understood. His characters were never superheroes or grand figures towering above us. They were ordinary people trying to navigate extraordinary circumstances. They made mistakes, they faltered, they tried again. And through them, Benton helped us process our own doubts and failures, our longings and fears. In a world increasingly inclined toward superficiality, Benton remained committed to depth, to plumbing the depths of human emotion, to exploring the gray areas where real life exists. What makes Benton's legacy so rich is not just his body of work, but the way that work continues to ripple outward. It is in the screenwriter who decides to write a quieter, more intimate story, because they saw places in the heart and realized the profound beauty of restraint. It is in the actor who learns how to inhabit a role with sincerity and empathy, having studied the layered performances his scripts inspired. It is in the audience, member who walks away from one of his films feeling changed, seen, perhaps even a little healed. His influence is quiet, but it is constant, woven into the fabric of modern cinema in ways that may not always be obvious but are deeply felt. Even now, after his passing, Benton's presence lingers in every heartfelt moment of dialogue, in every character who seems to leap off the screen with authenticity and emotional depth. His absence will be deeply felt, especially in an industry that often values spectacle over substance, but for those who knew his work, who found solace or understanding in his stories, his spirit lives on. He gave us something precious, stories that mattered, stories that meant something. So as we reflect on his life, we don't simply say goodbye to Robert Benton. We say thank you for the truths he dared to tell, for the silences he filled with. Meaning for the stories that reminded us of our own humanity. Though he may no longer be here to tell them, his stories remain, and they will continue to echo across time, whispering their truths to all who are willing to listen.